This is an NBC Palm Springs special report. Coronavirus facts, not fear. Presented by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of Eastern Coachella Valley.
Welcome back. Joining us now, best-selling author and educational psychologist, Dr. Michele Borba. She's here to let us know how to raise optimistic kids in pessimistic times, which is featured here in her latest book, Unselfie. And it comes in hardback and fancy, real bookshelf stuff. So we're going to be talking about this a little bit. Before we get to the serious side of this, you know, my daughter is of the age where her entire life she has had a camera phone stuck in her face, and then as soon as she was old enough to have her own phone, she was sticking it in her own face. How bad is this going to be in the long run with kids that have lived their whole life, you know, doing this?
Bad. Well, because we've discovered that empathy has gone down with American teens 40% in 30 years, while narcissism, I'm better than you, is up 58%. That's a dismal commodity when we're talking about how to raise contributing kids in a world right now today. But that's okay. Empathy can be cultivated, and it's one more thing we got to put on our plate, you know.
All right. You know, part of it, too, is if we actually live the lives that we show the Facebook world we're living, right, we'd all be living the lifestyles of the rich and famous. Is this delusion that everybody's life is so spectacular and mine's not part of the problem?
That's part of it. The part of it is that we all have to be carbon copies of someone else, and so we're not authentically helping our kids develop who they are as opposed to what they want to be in somebody else. It's a win-win, no kind of a world. It's hyper competitive is another thing. There's multiple factors. We're looking at technology has changed. We're in a dismal world, and we're really not putting empathy on the plate as really important these days, and we need to, just like we need to put optimism on the plate, Gino.
Yeah, in this world where even among adults, let's face it, it's hard to find a whole lot of empathy as we're busy divided into our sides versus their side. How do we get our kids to be more empathetic when they're not really seeing a lot of it from adults right now?
The number one way you raise an empathetic child is by modeling it. So don't look outside your house, start inside your house. Be the person you want your child to be. Contributions, just simple little ways to make a difference in the world, start to emphasize also their heart. We are so quick as a society right now, when our kids come home, the first question is what you get, as opposed to what kind thing did you do. So if we just put the reset button on and realize empathy is absolutely a critical factor, it's how we're going to get through this crisis. We're going to make a bigger difference in our kids' lives, and that's what we really want.
Specific steps that we can take as an adult. I'm sure you have a list of some kind you've compiled.
Well, actually, empathy is made up of 9 habits. I spent 10 years trying to figure out if it's so important, then how do you increase it? And we've discovered it starts with emotional literacy. You got to be able to turn and look at the other person and go, oh, she looks upset, or he sounds frustrated, or listen to how his whole body is looking. But our American kids right now, middle school kids in particular, are more comfortable texting than talking. They're looking down, not up. So another thing that we could do is during this time when they're at home, just intentionally start talking emotions a little more. If we just say, how are you feeling, or look at dad's face, is now the time to ask for an allowance raise? What we actually are starting to do is helping to cultivate emotional literacy. That's the seeds for it. Self-regulation is another one, because as stress goes up, empathy actually goes down, and burnout comes in. So we've been talking this over the last 2 months, really, Gino, in terms of maybe mindfulness, yoga, helping our kids identify their stress regulators. All of those can make a difference in how our kids turn out.
Now, as we're dealing with our kids, like we always would try to teach our daughters specifically, you know, if you see a kid eating alone, go over and sit with them or bring them into your peer group. And she's done a good job with that, especially with some of the cyberbullying that she's been able to see. But just telling kids to do something because it's the right thing to do doesn't always work. So how do we get them to do it? It's just because we say it's a good thing?
No, what we've actually discovered, in fact, one of the best things I've ever heard a kid tell me is that he said, you got to make empathy a verb. I said, what does that mean? He said, you don't learn it by just seeing it, you got to do it. So anytime we can get our kids into the picture of contributing, taking them with us to sit down with someone who looks needy, putting out just a box by our front door, and a box is, let's put it and stock it up with gently used toys or games or books, and every time it's filled, let's bring it to a family that's in need. Every child told me it was the look in the person's eye that said, my gosh, I think I made a difference on that man's life. I got to do more. We start to activate a children's empathy. So it just isn't emotional literacy. It goes into their heart, and now it's compassion in action. And that's how we take back this dismal trend of empathy going down.
Right. Yeah. So as usual, they're going to mimic what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It all starts with modeling. So every time you ask yourself, maybe as a parent, each night, if my child had only my behavior to watch today, what would he have caught? Becomes, oh my gosh, the rude awakening. Tune it up in yourselves, because we only have one chance to do this right. There's no rewind button when it comes to parenting. If we do it right, we'll raise our kids to be strong in heart as well as mind, and that's what we're really about.
All right. We got a little bit more with Dr. Borba right after the break. Stick around.
This is an NBC Palm Springs special report. Coronavirus facts, not fear. Presented by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
Continue our conversation with best-selling author Dr. Michele Borba. Doc, we were talking about empathy, but there's ways actually that empathy and pessimism can work against each other. Is that right?
Exactly. It creates what's called an empathy gap, and it reduces it, and that's what's happening right now. If we keep looking at all the doom and gloom, it actually diminishes our ability to feel with others, because we just get so stressed out. One of the coolest studies, Gina, was done at NYU when they found that images either increase and elevate our hearts or reduce it. So one of the easiest things to do right now is start cutting out the good news. It's always on the back page of the newspaper. But if you find the good news that other kids are doing in the world, you show it to your child, it actually inspires them. My favorite story is actually two kids, a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old in Philadelphia, who are so tired of the doom and gloom. They went down to their basements, and what they're doing is doing a little video of sharing all the good stuff that's happening in my village or my community, because they said, we just can't keep looking at all this doom and gloom stuff. Well, it went viral. What they're now doing is that 3 days a week, they're doing a good news report, and it's gone nationally. You could do the same thing at home. Every night at your family meal or right before your child goes to bed, cut out inspiring stories about real kids, or look also for wonderful books that have inspiring characters. All of those open our children's hearts. They keep their optimism open, and they really make a kid feel like the world is a good place, and that's exactly what we want.
Is it true, or would it be a logical statement to say if your child is full of empathy for others, that it'd be almost impossible for them to be pessimistic at the same time?
Well, they can, no, because they can have a reality check, and that sometimes there is a little healthy dose of pessimism, that it's okay. But you usually find that empathetic children see the gooder parts of the world, and as a result, they're mentally healthier, less depressed, and less stressed. The only problem with an overly empathetic child is they try to take on so much that you almost give them permission to step back. You can't do it all. Otherwise, they feel guilty if they don't try to solve the world. And it's not about trying to win a Nobel Peace Prize. It's just trying to help make your own world a little bit better place. And that's how we really do help our kids just see that the world is good, and that's how we're going to take it back and be stronger together.
The book is Unselfie, available at fine bookstores around the world. Dr. Michele Borba, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll be right back.